In one of our last videos, we talked about how to go fast to market. Well, today is going to be an extension of that where we're going to get down into the anatomy of a case study. Case studies are one of the most pivotal moments of your content marketing strategy. This is where your thought leadership is on stage. And so today I want to show you just how different the case study that I recommend is from all the other case studies out there. Instead of being a fake project, a school project, we're going to frame you as a scientific, entrepreneurial design researcher. So grab that popcorn, let's dive in. Talk about the anatomy of a case study. To begin, we're going to go over 11 pieces of the case study. So let's dive in. The first part is overview. Now, here we need you to have a synopsis, an abstract at the beginning of your case study, where you're going to give us the quick glimpse, spilling the beans, before we dive into the story. This is super important because this is often what hiring managers are looking for. They only spend seconds on your landing page for your case study. So here is the time to spill the beans, tell the results, the time duration, the problem, the solution, the process, the methods, the tools, the team, how many, the business goal, the user outcome, and don't forget to give yourself some props as the author of this case study. But for us, we're starting a new brand, so we're going to take a scientific approach and talk about story. So story really has exposition, rising action, climax, and falling action, and then finally the new normal, okay? So exposition means setting. We're just getting the characters. You got the business, and you've got the personas and yourself and your team. And so these are all the characters, and the setting should be the industry. What industry are you designing in? What problem is that industry faced with? And that brings us to the inciting incident, that moment where the flat line of setting goes to the rising action. We're going to have complications and problems along the way. The climax is this turning point. The falling action is recapping all the things you've learned, indeed the results. And then finally, the resolution is the new normal, you as the thought leader. So let's talk about headlines. This is really important because, as David Ogilvy says, on average, 5 times as many people read the headline as read the body copy. So when you've written your headline, you spent 80 cents of your dollar. And that's because 80% of people read the headline before they abandon. Only 13% skim and scan the images and the subheadlines, and only 3% read word for word, the rest abandon. And so there are some HubSpot templates that could help us write better headlines. Now, the next part is research. And as an entrepreneurial design researcher, this is really important because there are a lot of types of research. In your case study, you should feel empowered to use tertiary research like blog articles to lead you to secondary research, which would be more substantial scientific publications. Finally, primary research is the research that you yourself have done, and you want to talk about what question you're trying to answer in this case study. Is it a how might we? Is it some question around the problem space? And then finally, the solution research. This is typically competitors. And how are you different than them? That's really the analysis we want from your solution research. There's other solution research too, like if there's a new cure, whatever has been done in scientific journal publications that you might find is helpful, and you can productize it. The next step is problem. There's a lot of types of problems. We talked about user problems and business problems, and then complications along the way. And so here you can see our case study is where the star is. We are balancing between user problems and business problems. Businesses like to frame their problems as goals, objectives, opportunities as a positive spin, but don't be afraid to crank up the drama by calling it a business problem or indeed industry problem. Try to relate to the industry at large, whether it's fintech or IT or however you're going to frame that industry. Make sure it's an industry-wide problem, and you can use your secondary or tertiary research to quantify and back that up. The user problems can also be quantified through secondary or tertiary research, and you need to share those as well in the beginning of the story. Every good story starts with a problem. And now there is a lot of complications along your design process of choice, whether that's design thinking, design sprint, lean UX, you name it, you're going to have challenges, obstacles, hurdles, setbacks, and trade-offs along the way. We want to know what went wrong and how you maneuver or pivot. Okay, so don't be afraid to expose those hurdles along the way, those complications along the way. We want to know what they were and how did you maneuver. That's what we mean by data. What data drove your design decisions? Next is personas. There are 6 personas. There's a primary persona, where money comes from. There's a secondary persona, often a service worker like our delivery driver here, Sam Lewis, who we pay to deliver the package. Uber has an Uber driver, Airbnb has a host. Serve persona is like the child, the disabled, the homeless. We serve them. There's no way we would ask them for money, nor ask them to interact with our UI. The fourth is negative persona. These are laggards in Geoffrey Moore's Chasm, published in 1992. These are people that are comfortable and they don't want to change. If your persona is happy, they're probably a negative persona. They don't need to buy anything. Proto-persona is based on ourselves as entrepreneurs at first. It's a prototype of a persona. We say, I have this problem. Am I alone? And then the 6th persona is marketing persona. A marketing persona is based on statistics, quantitative analysis, demographics, numbers, right? And those are ways we segment the audience based on social science and some quantifiable data that we get from Facebook ads or Google ads, which give us some things on gender and all those things. I often say marketing personas describe the emission from the vehicle, whereas our qualitative research focuses on the fuel that fuels the engine. So oftentimes with analytical bias, we can get distracted by the results, which is reactive, rather than focusing on the cause, which is fueling the engine. So qualitative research focuses proactively on what causes the problem, whereas statistics measures the reactionary part. Now, proto-persona, one more caveat about that. When you're starting a new project with a team, proto-personas help you guys to see where you're aligned during your stakeholder interviews and out of alignment. So use proto-personas as an entrepreneur on ourselves. It's okay to start with yourself. It's a hypothesis. Later on, it becomes a primary or secondary or served or whatever. Then over time, then another proto-persona is if you're working in a team format, you want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So you're going to take everybody's data. Qualitative research is about participation, not just my way or the highway. So when you're working with a team, proto-personas are a makeup of everybody's opinions together. And that's your hypothesis collectively. The next part is flows. There's a lot of types of flows: user flow, task flow, wire flow, etc. Marketing funnel, sales funnel, and we talked about the pirate metrics before: awareness, acquisition, activation, revenue, retention, referrals. Well, all of this comes together when we are mapping this out. And in your case study, we want to know, what piece of the flow are you focused on? Don't focus on the entire thing. We want to know, what specific part of the flow are you really focused on? What went wrong and how did you measure? What are you testing? Okay, so we want to know what specific part of the flow you're testing. Don't just show us a flow for no reason. Show us what part you're testing. And the next part is test. So there are several types of test: usability test, concept test, viability test, feasibility test. There's also unmoderated, using Usability Hub, for example. They recruit for you, you pay $2 a user tester, and it's a nominal cost to get different types of tests on, whether it's a preference test or a usability test, you name it. Moderated is when you're there and you get a little higher quality data from that if you do it correctly. And in-person is fine, but remote moderated usability testing is often what we do when we are remote. And here you can see, courtesy of Sirjan Janwar, I found her case study online. She had a great shot here of her usability test, which was conducted with Zoom, and it was a remote moderated usability test. This is fine to do in Figma, okay? So it's an emulator of a mobile device, and you can get some really great results in this way. So don't be afraid of that. remote moderated usability testing. The next part is like the climax of your case study. Just like we see on commercials on television, they end with the brand as the call to action. So instead of leading with the brand, put it as the climax. Introducing Attic. Now, I found this online from a collective of people who worked on this Attic brand, and I thought it was really a great still. It was a great cover. It was a great glamour shot because we have the device and the logo type in the background. So it works really well. But you can check it out on Behance. I digress. Moving into your brand, this is where you're going to give us a little taste about the logo mark, the style guide, the glamour shot, the mock-up. You're going to wow us here, and we're calling it Attic. And this really helps us to have this climactic point, this turning point, where all your testing has culminated to, even though you may not be done. This is where you tease us with things like the design system, the style guide. Don't put them all in your case study, but you can link off to them from here. Like, how did we make the logo mark? How did we make the design system? Where is the design system? Where is the style guide? All that could be like blue links, hyperlinks in your case study that link off to other, types of portfolio pieces in your portfolio. But for now, you just needed to announce it, and we're calling it this. The next part is results. Results are all about efficacy, which is task completion. Was it a success or not? It's binary. Did they do it or not? Efficiency. How much time did it take for them to complete the task? Satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 7. 1 being difficult, 7 being easy. What did they rate it? And this is really the results that we share in our overview, and we remind them of this at the end, at the closing, the falling action. And here you can see like a diagram. We really need to see the errors that happened. If you're not calling out the errors of somebody clicked here and there was no clickability, or someone got stuck here and they thought they were done, if you're not calling out those errors, then you need to make sure that you update your case study with those results from your usability test. And finally, and very important, is author. And this is like a call to action. You need to end with you as the author giving yourself credit. What are you specialized in? What industry have you worked in the majority of your career? And how you are calling yourself a UX UI designer now. And your contact information is the call to action. Click here to hire me. Click here to follow me. Give them some call to action, and it's okay to bookcase your case study with yourself in the beginning and your team, and then remind them who you are at the end and ask them to hire you if that's what your call to action is. All right, gang, I hope you enjoyed that video on the anatomy of a case study so that you can have an actual tangible impact on your career and your success. If you like this video, click the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It keeps this channel alive. And if you want to be notified about future videos like this one, please click the bell notification, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.